Alright, YouTube, time for another video. This video, I'm going to go off a little bit on what I call the optimization of everything, and how I think it's taking the fun out of everything, too. As somebody who works in, adjacent to the big data, I work with large data sets, I fool around with them, I look at data for a living, a little bit at least. One of the things that really concerns me is this hyper obsession everybody has with, phrases like efficiency, optimization. In the video game world, it'll be called like min-maxing. Streamlining might be, that's a little bit different, but it's a similar mentality, I guess. And how, everybody's in this phase of not really exploring, growing, trying new stuff, and everyone's in this phase of refining what we have. And, there's nothing inherently wrong with refining things. Things obviously can be polished up or, made a little bit more, less wasteful. But this is now the entire global economy at this point. Everything is about trying to find the most efficient way to do things, and not about really finding new avenues and exploration of concepts, business growth, ideas. A good example I'll use for this is the world of basketball, where, I think we're getting to the point until they have a massive rule change to the game. We're not talking like even big things like hand checking and the removal of hand checking in the 90s, late 90s or so. We're talking like upping the feet of the basket to like 12 feet or something. Until they change the game of basketball radically, like to a 12-foot basket, or to a, or maybe adding something like moving the 3-point line further back, or almost doing some sort of weird analytical measure where every spot on the floor is worth more or less points depending on the efficiency of the shot or something, which would be insane, because then you'd have final scores of like 114.32 versus 109.77 or something. But until that, some radical shift, basketball, I would argue, is a solved game at this point. It's all about the 3-point shot, preventing the 3-point shot, and then preventing the real easy layup / dunk or something like that. The perimeter game is dead. Nobody cares about perimeter defense. Fine, hit the long range 2. Who cares? It's a low efficiency shot. It's not worth as many points. Don't worry about playing defense there. It's not going to matter. It's an optimized game. It's a fully min-maxed game. It's boring now. The NBA peaked probably sometime. Well, there's a couple of different eras. Some people say the 80s and 90s was like the late 80s to like the late 90s was the peak. And then some people will say the really big beginning of this 3-point era, which would have been about, you kind of saw the beginning of this era maybe with like the 07 Boston Celtics with that Boston 3-party team up. But then like kind of Steph Curry and the Warriors when they beat the Nuggets in the playoffs in like 2013ish was kind of maybe the real era that we currently live in of just 3 points after 3 points. And now to stop talking about basketball, because that's only one part of it, but like everything's in that mindset of just being min-maxed and optimized, and I think that creates a lot of boredom. We're at the point now where every job is about efficiency. It's about trimming fat. It's about, it's not really about finding new markets. It's not really about finding a new business or finding a new idea or a new demand or a need. It's more about like taking what already exists and making it optimized based on algorithmic data and, feeding you information that already exists, but is supposedly in tune for what you want, and keeping you hooked that way. And I just think that's a really dangerous way to structure your economy, because if you keep getting reminders of just the same things over and over again, you're never going to really expand your mind to change and to find other hobbies you might enjoy more, you know? Just because you like to do something right now doesn't mean you're always going to like to do it. And also it doesn't mean that there aren't things that you would like to do more that you haven't discovered. But when we live in this algorithmic based economy, because so many people are terminally online, that, you know, you're basically being fed over and over again kind of the same thing, and it's only causing you to not branch out as a person. And I think that we're reaching the point of, I know this is kind of describing like maybe like a singularity type of thing, but how many people's lives, how many people here are bored just because it's the same every day? It's like that 9 Inch Nails song, every day is exactly the same. Well, yeah, I mean, you're spending all day online. You're not doing anything new. You're not dropping hobbies that you're getting bored of. You're not starting up new hobbies and being a novice at things anymore. All that stuff, is it a fear? Is it a, laziness? Is it both? Is it something else? Everybody's just in this chronic state of, they have this fear of missing out, but they don't want to do anything new or try something new or admit that they need a freshness in their life, hanging out with people you haven't hung out with in a while, trying a new hobby, revisiting an old hobby that you put on the back burner for, 5 years or something. So I do think that the optimization, a good example, I used to play the game Diablo and Diablo 2 way back in the kind of early 2000s, late 90s. And one of the things I didn't really, and the same thing goes with Path of Exile, which is a little bit more of a contemporary example. I loved Path of Exile a lot. I think it's a fun game. It's enjoyable. It's very, there's a lot of stuff to, a lot of ways to build your character, but nowadays everybody finds some build online and they just follow that, and because it's already been min-maxed. Or like how a lot of MMORPGs, that genre is kind of dead now. And I think it's because of one chunk of it is because of early access, and there's other reasons too, but when a game is released and by the time the open beta is over, people already have an idea of how to play the class or the character or whatever. Well, you've taken away the fun, which is exploring this open, massive world where you're going to put points into things that you'll regret 5 levels, 10 levels down the line, but at the time it felt cool and exciting, so you did it anyway, and stuff like that. And it's it's this min-maxed and optimization of everything. Do people ever want to just explore and be a novice at things and try to figure out, who knows? I mean, chances are with the internet and information age, you won't find something new to do or whatever. In the case of Path of Exile, you're not going to find a better skill build. Probably not, but you never know. People do find it. You also have to find out what works for you. And you're not going to find that in a a hyper efficient market. You're going to find that in a market that has a more frontier and something that's not as explored. It's going to cause you to grow as a person. It's going to cause you to develop a sort of independence, a sort of individuality, a sort of perspective on life that could be shared with others to then expand upon and refine and whatever. Okay, but we just live in this hyper optimized world where more and more people just only care about the min-maxing of everything and not about actually, exploring and not, making a mistake along the way, but also learning something new. So, does anybody, I haven't gotten any comments on any of my videos, so I don't know if I'm talking into a void here, but does anybody else think that way? Does anybody else think that the optimization and efficiency of everything is just making the world boring? The algorithmic based lifestyle we live in a lot of ways is just boring now? Am I the only one who feels this way? So yeah, does anybody have any examples of optimization affecting them in a negative way? Hell, I mean, I'm willing to listen to optimization in a positive way too, I guess, but I just don't see it as often. So kind of a shorter video, but I thought it was I thought I spoke to the point. Another thing, during another quick example, and I'll end the video after, is if you look at the world of chess on Twitch, right? During COVID, the Twitch meta was like everyone was broadcasting chess games, right? And that caused some handful of streamers to become really popular, which, I know, like that Hikaru guy, or the Botez sisters and all them, and they kind of moved on to other things because the chess meta died, and they still wanted to retain viewership, which is, kind of a addiction to social media and everything, but whatever, it's their lives. But you were watching, and it's like, with all these games of chess that are stored on, chess.com or leechess.org or whatever it is. I mean, how close are we to getting chess to be a solved game at this point? I mean, yeah, in theory, there's billions and trillions and maybe quintillions of permutations of the game of chess, but we have large amounts of data on the game now, and we can run simulations of these games very quickly. So are we getting close to a solved game of chess? And that would be another thing. It's like, we need new things that aren't solved, and we need new things that aren't close to being solved. And that's where I think that the world is becoming stale. Now, the game of chess, due to the amount of ways to play and move pieces, there's probably large amounts of games that haven't been played yet. But I do think we're getting to the point where we can simulate, and who knows what happens from there. And so chess might be a later stage example of the optimization, but this is happening with the business world. It's happening with sports. It's happening with music. Maybe I mean, everything's just being streamlined, efficiency optimized, and whatnot. So anyway, what's your thoughts? And I'm out.